You're listening to the Patriot Nation Podcast.
All right, welcome into another edition of the Patriot Nation Podcast, of course, brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports wagering partner of CLNS Media. Go to FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up today. And Matt, we are talking about Super Bowl 58. We'll also get into your mock draft as well. Listen, I forgot. It is Pat Lane with my guy, Matt St. Jean. Matt, we're talking about Super Bowl 58. Mahomes gets his third. Yeah, Mahomes gets it third. It was a great game. But, it's just – this is why I didn't want the Chiefs to win, because it's so – we can't even objectively talk about a really good game. You know? It's just the worst. Yeah. It's the absolute worst. So, I don't know. I'm very upset about it. I'm not upset about it. I don't really care. It doesn't really matter to me. He's not there yet. We've talked about it. Me and you have talked about it. He's not there yet. And so, but now it's I can't even sit there and here's real. You want to know the real issue? We can't even say how good Mahomes was. I can't go, and I've said it a few times. Mahomes was incredible last night. What he's doing is fantastic. He is, in my opinion, number 3 on the all-time list right now. He's number 3 on the all-time list right now. I think you could start to come close to making an argument about Montana, but when Brady was there, every single person I talked to said, no, he can't pass Montana until he gets 4. Okay, so that was the rule. That was the rule back then. Apparently it's not the rule anymore, but that was the rule back then.
Well, and the rule back then wasn't that Brady had to get 4 to pass Montana. It was that he had to get 4 to tie Montana. It wasn't until Super Bowl 51 when Brady had won 5 of them that people said, all right, he is the greatest now.
Yeah. Right. And it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, that was the point where it was okay, Patriots fans aren't crazy for making this argument. That was when they won the 4th one. It's okay, now you actually get to make this argument. Right. And Mahomes is really, really good. He's entertaining. I like watching him play football.
Yep. What
makes present tense Tom Brady the greatest to ever do it is that he did it at that level for 20-something years.
Correct.
And it's not a slam on Mahomes that he hasn't done that yet. He's been exceptional. If he does this for, 3/4 of the length of Tom Brady's career, he's going to go down as the greatest of all time, and I'll tip my cap to him because he will have earned it at that point. But the sport's about longevity, is it not? It has been the entire time we've been doing it up until the last. It seems like the last 5 weeks, all of a sudden, we've thrown that out the window.
Yeah, 100%. And Jermaine Brown asked about, what happened to Peyton Manning and the GOAT talk. And look, people went nuts about Peyton Manning, right? That was the conversation until Brady put some distance between him and Manning, right? Until Brady got 5, everyone was like, whoa. I mean, I'd still take Peyton Manning. But, look what he's done. His regular season numbers are incredible. And and it was always, well, Manning has the numbers and Brady has the wins. And, well, if you switch those guys out, if you put Manning in the Patriots, and it's well, wait a second. Hold on. Just let's calm down a little bit. Right. And then once Brady got to 7, it was all right, what are we even talking about here? And then people realized oh, Manning hasn't even passed Montana, so it's, but there was always that narrative. And the funniest thing for me is that, and this is one of the things that I was just kind of going back and forth and just looking at, was that I felt like the NFL in general wanted to prevent the Patriots from being a dynasty, right? They changed the rules of how you play defense because the Colts didn't like it. They changed the rules so that the Patriots would have a harder time winning, right? So, that's crazy to me. They changed the rules so that the Patriots would, oh, wait, they changed the rules so the Chiefs would have an easier time. The Chiefs didn't win when they played in overtime against the Patriots, so they changed the rules of overtime so that the Chiefs would have a chance to get the ball back, right? So like it's now you're looking at saying, well, wait a second, before they were changing rules to hurt the Patriots, now they're changing rules to help the Chiefs. So it's just kind of funny when you look at the way things are done now. It almost seems like the NFL and a lot of the general public wants to embrace the Chiefs, whereas a lot of the general public wanted to hate on the Patriots. Now, the other part of it is that I don't know if that's even true, because as a Patriots fan, I felt like I was getting hated on a lot. Maybe I wasn't. I don't know. That's hard for me to say.
Well, I mean, the other part of it is that, the Patriots had I don't know how to say his name, John Tomasi story.
Scumbag.
Spygate, and they had Deflategate, and once it became, a thing that the Patriots broke the rules, anybody could make up a story and claim something happened. It would get a little bit of traction somewhere. So they earned that reputation, which they leaned into because, who cares? We're winning. You can say what you want. And, it does go back a little bit to 2003 and 2004. And the Chiefs just don't have that. They've just been really good for a couple of years. There's nobody like the most hateable parts of the Chiefs are people who really aren't even on the team. It's people who have issues with like the media stuff around them, but it's not really the players at this point. The most hateable Chiefs player in recent memory is Tyreek Hill, and he hasn't been there for the last 2 rings. But so what does annoy me though about the discourse is there are people who have been like, well, Mahomes is here for a different era type of thing. Like Brady couldn't win in his era. I've heard that kind of sentiment coming out of people's mouths. I'm like the body's not cold. He retired last season.
He did. Not only that, he's 2-0 against Mahomes in the playoffs.
Brady went into Arrowhead with what many thought was one of the worst Patriots teams that they had in the whole Brady Belichick era against a Chiefs team with obviously it was still essentially rookie Mahomes, first year starter, but with a prime Kelsey and a prime Tyreek Hill. Went into Arrowhead and beat them in overtime and put up 37 points on them. Like that was a Tom Brady victory.
Right.
And, it's like, and then you got the Super Bowl, obviously, which, all the Buccaneers defense was also a huge part of that. But
of course,
Tampa went and scored first and put points on the board and made Patrick Mahomes play from behind, which was a big reason why they won that game. It's like, get out of here with like the whole era stuff. They were in the league together for 4-5 seasons.
Yeah, they were in the league together for 5 years.
6 years. I think technically 6 when Mahomes sat on the bench that one year, which I'm fine not counting that.
No, is it Mahomes' seventh year in the league?
Mahomes was drafted in 2017.
Okay.
Sat 2017, started playing 2018. So it would have been 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Where the 5 years they were both starters in the league at the same time.
Yeah,
that's a lot of time. That's longer than your average NFL career that they shared in the league together. Brady has the better record. Brady beat him in bigger moments twice. And even if you want to throw out like the head-to-head win-loss stuff, if we don't want to do wins or a quarterback stat, which is what we were told about Tom Brady this entire time, which is suddenly back again.
Yep.
Look at the numbers. Brady was putting up numbers when he was 40 whatever years old that are not dissimilar from what Mahomes is doing in his prime. That is one of the things that made Tom Brady absolutely ridiculous. And I know you'd mentioned this on Twitter. I hate the whole first X years of career versus first X years of career way of comparing this. And I do get it for a certain point because Mahomes is crazy good for the lack of experience he has relative. But Brady's first 7 years in the league, or whatever it is, pre-Randy Moss, how many Hall of Famers did he have on offense? Because Mahomes has played with 1 or 2 in his receiving core this entire time. And if you want to make, I think what I feel like is the more accurate comparison, we should probably be comparing the Mahomes and Kelsey years to the Brady and Gronk years.
Correct.
That is how I feel like we should be doing this because Kelsey's going to retire at some point.
Yep.
And if the Chiefs don't replace him with somebody good, which could happen because it's very hard to do, then we're going to find out, what this looks like. That's the longevity point.
Well, not just that. Tom Brady led the NFL in passing touchdowns in 2002 with 28. It's a little bit, it was a very, very different league then, a very different league. So we can't sit here and talk about, well, the passing yards. I don't care about the passing yards. The average passing yards is up 20 yards per game. It's up 20 yards per game. 20 yards per game is significant. That's significant.
And as far as I'm aware, when you compare a lot of the era adjusted stuff, and how you are relative to your peers that season, Brady is still ahead. I don't know if he's ahead for like those 7 seasons or whatever, but Brady generally comes out ahead on those things. And again, like these two guys are both really, really good. Like they're close. And like I said, if Mahomes keeps this up for a long time, he'll take the title, and I'm fine with that.
Yes,
you just can't. He doesn't even have half of the rings that Tom Brady has. He's not even halfway there. He's one short of Montana.
And that's the other part of it, right? So Dan said it. My guy AWS Sabermetrics is Dan Bradley, and he did send me a chart which just broke down kind of the league average and Brady versus the league average and Mahomes versus the league average. It's an interesting chart. I'm not going to bore you with the math right now, but here's the idea, right? It's up to it. They're up 20 yards per game. If you're up 20 yards per game, right? Now there's 17 games, but we'll just do it at 16 games. But if you're up 20 yards per game, it's 800 yards more per season that the average quarterback is throwing per season. 800 yards. That's significant, right? So of course the numbers are going to look different if you're averaging 800 yards more per game per season. Clearly the numbers are going to look different. Oh, guess what's going to come with those 800 more passing yards? Probably some more passing touchdowns too, right? So it's easier to play offensive football now than it was from 2001 and 2007. It just is, right? And what's interesting about it is that coincidentally here, you got 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, 06. Does that include 07? Probably not. If I had to guess, I would say probably not.
I'm not sure. So the other thing I want to...
It's been 7 years, right? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's been 7 years. But Mahomes in those 7 years hasn't actually played 7 years. He's only played 6. So they do the same thing with Brady, where Brady didn't play his first year either. So it was his first 7 years until 2007. Just coincidentally, we'll just cut it off there.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention too, because this is kind of annoying, Andy Reid getting into the GOAT coach conversation. Andy Reid's really, really, really good.
Yep.
But if you are a football journalist, you'll sit here and say Andy Reid is, closing on being the GOAT because of what he's done. And then you'll turn around and say what we saw from Bill of the last 5 seasons without Brady, he couldn't win a ring without Brady. It's clear that it was all Brady because of that. You're not serious. How long did Andy Reid do this without winning a ring? Andy Reid in 2013 is what Kyle Shanahan is to everybody right now. He was the guy who was really good at designing things on offense who could not win, could not get the big one. And, that's, and what are we're going to hold it? You can't not hold that against Reid, but then hold Bill's years without winning Super Bowls against him. It's not how this works. Reid and Bill have been, they got hired. Reid got hired in Philly around the same time Bill got hired in New England. So you can kind of just use the last 25 years as a relatively equal sample. And Bill has clearly come out on top, beating Andy Reid in the playoffs multiple times, including in the Super Bowl. So, Andy Reid's a phenomenal coach. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's, I think, inarguably one of the top 5 coaches ever at this point with the resume he's put together. He's really good. And if he does this more, then we can have the conversation. But, jumping the gun by quite a bit there.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. All right, I wanted to try something. I just want to try something. I'm gonna do a little role play. Okay.
Oh my god.
And I'm just gonna pretend just for
late on a Monday night
seconds or so. I'm just gonna pretend like I'm a crazy fanatic Chiefs fan, because I just think the funny things that they say is hilarious. So they sit there and they talk about, Patrick Mahomes has the greatest 7-year stretch. Not even 7 years. It's not 7 years, but that's okay. Has the greatest 7-year stretch of all time. He's won 3 Super Bowls. He's won 3 Super Bowl MVPs. He's prevented guys from winning. He's won 2 NFL MVPs. And no one else has ever done what Patrick Mahomes has done. And in these 7 years, he's proven that he is the GOAT right? That
Wait.
Him being I think it is. And you know why Tom Brady's music is playing? Okay, because Tom Brady had the greatest 7 years in the history of the NFL. And do you know what those 7 years were? Let's start off in 2014. Oh, I don't know. In 2014, let's see. Oh, when he had two, not one, but two 14-point deficits to the Baltimore Ravens and won that game anyways. Oh, and then was down 10 points in the fourth quarter, which, by the way, was the largest fourth quarter comeback in the history of the Super Bowl, and did it against the greatest defense in the history of the NFL. Yes, you heard me correctly. I said the greatest defense in the history of the NFL. Do you know why the Seahawks are the greatest defense in the history of the NFL? You might say, well, wait a second. No, they weren't. Yes, they were. Because if they had held on and won that game, they would have beaten Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in back-to-back Super Bowls. They would have been unequivocally the greatest defense in the history of the NFL. And Tom Brady ripped their soul out and literally ended their franchise.
The most passing yards they gave up to anybody all season long. And I looked that up because I saw somebody on Twitter saying that was one of Tom Brady's bad Super Bowls. What, set a record for completions in that one? Throwing it 50 times against the greatest pass defense in the modern NFL, bar none.
Absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. 2015 goes into Denver with nobody. Everyone on that team was hurt. Completes that insane, one of the greatest throws I've ever seen in my entire life to Gronk on that fourth down pass. Gostowski misses the extra point, so they end up losing. Okay, fine. 2016. Oh, what happened in 2016? Oh my God, 2016. It was down 28-3. Must have lost. No, that's right. They came back and won that game, 28-3, and he set a record for the most passing yards ever in the history of the Super Bowl. That happened, right? Did that happen? Most passing yards in the history of the Super Bowl? Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay, so most passing yards in the history of the Super Bowl, goes to overtime, wins the game in overtime, comes back from 25 down halfway through the third quarter, wins. The following year, 2017, wins the NFL MVP, 2017. Oh, and then throws for 500 yards, breaks his own record he had set the year before, throws for over 500 yards and loses because his defense can't stop a nosebleed. Fine.
And Shaq Mason can't block.
That was awful. Yeah, okay, yep. So 2018 comes back, beats Mahomes in Arrowhead in one of the most impressive performances by a quarterback you'll ever see. Okay, wins the Super Bowl again. Okay. 2019, terrible season. We won't. Okay, 2019 is a pass. So I'll give you an extra year. Because 2019 is a pass, I'll give you an extra year. We're going to add 2021 onto the end of this one. 2020. What happens is he wins the Super Bowl in 2020. Who does he beat? He just beat a top 5 defense in Washington. Drew Brees. Oh, that guy's pretty good. Aaron Rodgers. That guy's pretty good. Oh, and then Patrick Mahomes. That guy's pretty good.
And those were on the road.
Oh my God. All 3 of those were on the road? That's crazy. You know what's crazy about that, too, is that he scored 30-plus points in all 4 of those games. No big deal. Yep. I mean, it's just a coincidence, I'm sure. 2021 should have won NFL MVP, but it goes to Aaron Rodgers instead, which was a joke, but nevertheless. And then in the divisional game is playing the Rams, is down 24 points to the Rams, storms all the way back to tie the game with 42 seconds left, and the freaking defense pukes all over themselves and gives up a long pass to Cooper Kupp, and they end up losing the game. But that 8-year stretch is the greatest stretch in the history of the NFL. It's not close. It is not close. And Mahomes has been great.
And you know what's hilarious about that, Pat? You left out, that stretch doesn't include the season where he broke the record for most touchdown passes in a year, or the season where he was unanimous MVP, or the 2012 offense, which is one of the best, 2011 and 2012, two of the best offenses ever put together. It's just ruthlessly efficient.
Doesn't include any of them. Doesn't include the two fourth quarter game-winning drives in his first 2 Super Bowls. Doesn't include any of that stuff, man. And so, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a reason why Tom Brady is the greatest, because he did the stuff that Mahomes is doing and he kept doing it.
Yep.
So we want to. I know we're doing the Mahomes Brady stuff. Do we want to talk about the game itself for a minute here?
Let's talk about the game. We gotta get into the game itself.
Yeah, give a couple minutes at least.
The freaking, I know you're sad for Kyle Shanahan. You feel bad for Kyle. I know I get it, but god damn, that man is stupid. He just like
Well, what do you have an issue with?
Well, it's the problem. The problem for me is that it's the defensive play calling and the offensive play calling. I don't know what they were doing in the third quarter. They just fell in love with the pass and thought Brock Purdy could win the game by himself. That was insanity. What they should have done, the Chiefs were playing lockdown defense. What they should have done is manufactured targets for Debo, Ayuk, McCaffrey, and Kittle. Kittle, they couldn't get the ball to Kittle. He had 2 catches for 4 yards. Like, I don't understand what they were doing. Like, they were trying to throw the ball downfield. It wasn't working. McDuffie was fantastic. L'Jarius Sneed was fantastic. That's the strongest part of their defense. And they tested them instead of running it consistently. It made no sense to me.
So I should have saved the pictures to throw up here because that's exactly what I was thinking. And then somebody shared the dots view of the Chiefs' defensive looks on all of those, the first plays where it was like San Francisco's got to run. They had like 9 in the box on every single one of them. The Chiefs came up and said, we're going to blitz you. We're going to put everybody in your face, and we're going to make Brock Purdy beat us. And those first couple of possessions out of the half, they loaded the box, so San Francisco threw it. On the first possession, I think it was a completion, and it went backwards. No, the first one was just a regular incompletion. They got a false start, and now it's 2nd and 15. You can't run it from there. The next one, they get a completion because they tried to do one of the scheme to touches, and the Chiefs blew it up and sent him back 8 yards. And now it's 2nd and 18, and you can't run. And then the touchdown drive they did have there, they only ran it for like 18 yards on it. So when they were able to pass it, it worked. It was just, I think you saw the difference between having a good quarterback and having an elite quarterback because like they're just betting on whether or not Purdy could make those throws. And there were a couple of throws in there where it's like, it's not bad that Purdy didn't make the throw, but if he was a better quarterback, he would. And if he was a better quarterback, they would have won the game. Like a couple of those where he's under pressure and he just couldn't make it.
Yeah, that the Debo one in the end zone where he overthrew him in the end zone, and they were like, "Well, he got pressure on him," and like, yeah, but he's got to make that throw, man. Like, he's got to get that throw there.
It was shades of Jimmy Garoppolo.
It was.
That one.
It was.
And they scored a touchdown on that drive, so it didn't.
Yeah, so it didn't matter. But in overtime, he's got Jawan Jennings on that whip route, and Jawan Jennings is wide open, and he just airmails it. I know Chris Jones is in his face. I get it, but like, make that pass, man. You got to make that throw. The Super Bowl's on the line. You got to make it.
Yeah.
And
you know where he's going to be. Yeah.
Right. And he just airmails it, Yeah.
And I think you look back, the three biggest plays in this game were 2 of them were Chiefs defensive stops, and one was that fumbled punt. We talk. You can go through this whole season. We can break down all the X's and O's, but nothing you can do about a guy not hearing the call to get out of the way of the punt. Like that's in the Super Bowl, this is a theme with the Niners now over the last 15 years of them muffing punts in big games. But
I thought he called it late, and I might be wrong on that. It looked like to me he called it late.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the issue was there. Right. But you do that, and you give Mahomes a free possession there,
literally on the first play.
At that point in the game, which you just can't do. And if we count that whole sequence as one possession, the Chiefs scored on I think their last 5, so that's when they got going.
Yeah. But let them back in the game. That changes the whole game. That one play changes the entire game.
Yeah,
because you had him on the ropes.
Yeah. And then there's the 2 third downs, the third and mediums. There's the one at the end of regulation. It's Trent McDuffie had an amazing blitz on that, and he came in at the last second, and that was exceptional. I actually made a comment on the podcast a couple months ago saying, "Hey, like Trent McDuffie's awesome. I'd rather have Miles Bryant as a UDFA than Trent McDuffie in the first." I'm going to walk that back now because with what McDuffie did, he was fantastic all game long.
He's a stud. He's a stud. A deserved first team All-Pro.
Yeah, but Purdy didn't see where the blitzer was coming from, and he thought his hot read there, the guy he's supposed to throw to on a blitz, was covered. He didn't realize that was the guy who was blitzing, and Ayuk is wide open on a slant. He would have had the first, or at least he's going to catch it and go down a yard short. You can either go for it or whatever, but time's going to come off the clock and all that. And it's a very different ball game from that point. And then the throw in overtime, like we talked about. How do you leave Chris Jones unblocked with the Super Bowl on the line? Right. And that's offensive line miscommunication. The entire thing came down to offensive line miscommunication, special teams miscommunication. Your entire season against the top 3 quarterback ever. And the only reason you lose is because of those mistakes. If you're a Niners fan, that's going to haunt you. If you're Kyle Shanahan, that's going to haunt you. If you're on that team, that's going to haunt you. That it just came down to those silly things.
It's totally true. It's totally true. And I think as I didn't like some of the play calls, I didn't like some of the designs by San Fran. I thought that they were out schemed a lot of it. And I think for me, at least, I looked at it and thought, man, like it just shows you how good Spags is. Spagnuolo is incredible. And to me, he is the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL. And I know, Belichick doesn't count there anymore because he's a coach, right? But and Spagnuolo wasn't a good coach, but he's an unbelievable defensive coordinator. He's won the Super Bowl 4 times as a DC. He's fantastic. What he can dial up is incredible, right? It's incredible what he can dial up. And, he won out. And so you look at it and just say, okay, I'm sorry. The Niners offense is better than the Chiefs defense. They are. The Chiefs defense is very good. The Niners offense is exceptional. They're incredible.
Statistically it was. Yeah.
Right. And you look at the players. Look at the players. Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey, Kittle, Trent Williams. Like they are better.
Yep.
And they weren't.
And you know why?
On Sunday.
And you know why? You know who you didn't name there? And the offensive lineman not named Trent Williams.
Right.
The rest of that line is not that good. And you can deal with it when you have Purdy, who's pretty good at creating on the move, and players who can take a pass at 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage and turn it into a 25-yard gain at the drop of a hat. You can get around the offensive line issues. But Spags had a great scheme. And then Kyle Shanahan, I think, just didn't have a great answer for it. And this is, I think, one of the big questions now in the modern NFL, the McVay-Shanahan offense that everybody loves right now. Right. One of the reasons why it's so successful is that they condense the formations. They get the receivers really close to the line of scrimmage or to the tight ends and the offensive line, and they get them involved in the run game. And the fact that they're so close means everybody is a slot receiver. And so everybody can go deep, they can go out, they can go in, they can go across the formation, they can just stop. And it puts a ton of stress on the defense. And it's really, really good. The issue with what we saw from the Chiefs is that it brings all of the defenders into the box, which makes, the running game can be a little bit more hit or miss at times because of that. And you can blitz like crazy. If you've guys in the back end who can cover and tackle it all, you can just bring blitz after blitz. You can bring it from different spots. You can confuse the offensive line. And Purdy wasn't bad against the blitz, but he was just okay. And that was the difference. He was just okay. And every time that the Niners blitzed Mahomes, it was barbecue chicken. He was figuring out exactly what he wanted to do and getting to it. And I think you see that's honestly where you see the athletic difference between the two. He's the second Purdy gets blitzed, he can't run away from it. He can't throw over it. He can't throw through it. He can't step into it. Mahomes can drift off his back foot and drop a dime wherever he wants to before the pressure gets there.
He had a play, and it was ended up getting knocked away. 45, I think, knocked it away. I don't know who 45 is on their defense, but he ended up knocking it away.
That was the backup linebacker who came in for Dre Greenlaw.
I thought that was 48, but either way, doesn't matter.
Had a couple of guys that came in. He was
So, anyways, there was a play where Mahomes rolled out to his right. It was in the red zone, and Bosa had kind of rode the running back out to the flat, and he came running in, and he's just running straight at Mahomes. And Mahomes just never even flinched. He just moved adjusted his body slightly as he was running, and Bosa just completely whiffed. And it was just, he didn't throw a head fake at him, nothing. He just slightly adjusted, and Bosa completely missed him. And so in that respect, and Mahomes, of course, is a little different. Brady did it in the pocket, but in that respect, Mahomes and Brady are very similar to avoiding pressure. Mahomes does it outside the pocket better than I've ever seen. Like, and again,
Amazing feel. Yeah.
it's not that he's like juking guys. He's just doing enough to just change the angle, you know?
And it's not just that, it's that you have the subtlety of movement combined with the fact that you do the entire operation, and at no point is the defender your primary focus. You're still trying to pass the ball the entire time, which is remarkable. And Brady, like you said, Brady did it in the pocket, you know, the subtle 3-inch step up to make sure that the defender's hand didn't get enough jersey to take him down, and then he rips a ball and it's a first down. And Mahomes would still roll out of the pocket and do exactly what you said.
Right. Old Man Bob points out one thing. Yeah. Kyle Shanahan passed on Tom Brady twice.
Yeah, and that's tough.
That is just inexcusable. It's inexcusable.
Was it twice?
Well, I don't know, but he said twice. Theoretically, when they traded for Jimmy G, but I don't think he actually was really available. But in 2020, it is inexcusable for him to have not gone and done that. And so, I just imagine if that team had Tom Brady as his quarterback, they would have won 3 straight Super Bowls. They would have been 100%. Unstoppable. They would have been unstoppable.
Yeah, and they're going to get imagine, too, if Gronk comes with him and you have the Gronk and Kittle offense back in 2020 with what Kyle Shanahan does, you can do anything you want on the football field. Yeah,
right.
You could just go out there and have fun.
So, and there's a few other comments. Maka over there. So Maka was like, wait a second, Belichick stopped the cake on twice, which he did. But I was saying I was eliminating Belichick from the defensive coordinator situation because he has moved on.
Yeah, he's in the head coach.
He's a head coach now, so he doesn't count towards the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. That counts towards his resume, but he's now head coach. You can't count him. I can't do that to people and count him as DC and head coach either. So it does count on his resume, but I think Spagnuolo or Spags. I'm just gonna call him Spags. It seems weird because my guy Ryan Spagnuolo, but I don't know if it's Spagnola. It doesn't matter. We're just calling Spags. Is the best pure defensive coordinator of all time.
If we're talking about pelts on the wall, he has, I think, the 3 best teams by DVOA to have lost in the playoffs or something like that, in the 2007 Pats and the Ravens and Niners. I think it's the best offense. I think those are the 3 best offenses that lost in the playoffs, and he was the defensive coordinator against all of them. That's remarkable. That's incredible. So
the 2007 Patriots are unstoppable, and he stopped them.
And it's we've talked about how the 2007 team, they had the scare in New York at the end of the regular season where it looked like, the Giants played them way closer than anybody thought. They still put up 38 points in that game. That wasn't the defense. That was the Giants offense being able to keep up with them.
Yeah.
So, it does, seeing what we've seen the last couple of weeks makes me feel just the tiniest bit better about 2007, knowing how good Spags is, and that it's like, all right, especially now looking back at it, and it feels way less like an Eli thing and a lot more like we met one of the great defensive minds who just had it drawn up perfectly for that offense. I'm fine to a certain degree tipping my cap and saying, he's better that day, and that's how it goes.
Yeah. So anyways, look, it turned out to be a great Super Bowl. I said on the podcast, I've been saying it for 2 weeks. I was going to bet on the Chiefs. All of my money went on the Chiefs, and I won some money because I was not about to lose to Patrick Mahomes in money as well. I was mad enough that they were going to win. I was like, forget it, dude. I'm betting on it. What I should have done when they were down 10, live bet them as well, and I didn't because I wasn't really paying attention to my phone at that point. Well, I wasn't paying attention to that, but Thad mentions it was the most watched Super Bowl ever. Of course, it was 123 million or something like that.
I just assume every year it is because there's more people.
True, and I think
it isn't. That's kind of a failure.
True, and I think this time, with the added, Taylor Swift stuff. The Taylor Swift stuff is interesting because I feel like there were a lot more parties, and there were always a ton of parties. So I don't know how they count. I mean, I guess TVs that are on, but if you have 15 people sitting in front of one TV, does that count as 15? I think it counts as one, right? So I don't know. But either way, I just
Nielsen does those. Yeah, Nielsen does some stuff on that to like adjust. I know, but I don't know exactly how it works. It's above my pay
So,
grade.
but either way, it was watched a lot. And look, my kids, whatever. We've talked about this. Say whatever you want about Taylor Swift. My kids were excited. They were interested. They wanted to see the game. They were like excited to see what happened. That was cool.
Yeah,
and so
and we had a Super Bowl party here, and it was some of my friends' girlfriends who haven't always been as into football were not just watching but asking questions about the game and like trying to learn things. But so like the people who've watched football but never really know what it is, like, oh, that's actually what first down means. They're not just lines on the screen. Like this is that's why they do it, or like things like that. And it's that's one of the fun parts about being a sports fan, is being able to pass down the knowledge to new people and invite new people in. And I really appreciate that about what we've seen in the last couple of months.
I like it. And by the way, we bet on it. We didn't bet on it, but we kind of said, how many times do you think they're going to show Taylor Swift right during the game? And Johnny, my little guy, was like 1 billion.
And it ended up being what, 54 seconds?
And Violet goes, my middle daughter goes, like 5. And they probably showed her 5 times. And then, of course, once the Super Bowl ended, they showed her longer, right? So
but she's in the celebrations. Like that is the time for all of that.
That's the thing, right? So of course she's in it then, but like going to commercial a few times here and there, but like they didn't show her a ton. That's the thing.
It was a total of 54 seconds. You can't handle 54 seconds of any celebrity at a like famous event.
4.5 hour event, right? Like
And I credit to her for, I don't know if you had seen the beer chugging thing with her. They showed her on the Jumbotron and she chugged a beer. I was like, all right, she gets it. I love it. Yeah. Like that's pretty electric right there.
I agree. So, by the way, Gary over there started at 11:30, took the day off and had a few friends over. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm hoping at some point here the NFL is probably going to add an extra bye week or an extra week to the season or something. And Super Bowl is going to end up on President's Day weekend. We're here in the States for you, Gary. We get the Monday off, so we get the day after the Super Bowl off. That's how it should be. That's
as it should be. That's the way it should be. And listen, let me tell you something, man. We have a snow day tomorrow. I had to take a half day anyways because there was no one to put my kids on the bus this morning, and I was like, you know what? Screw it, I'm taking a whole day. So I took the whole day off. And it was great. It was fantastic. I was like, this is great. I got some stuff done around the house. It was, it was nice.
You get a nice long weekend here.
Yep. And snow day. So,
Side note, did you, while we're talking Super Bowl, before we move on, did you see the logo for next year's was announced earlier? Unveiled it. It's the wildest and kind of the most colorful of the Super Bowl logos in the new era. They went because it's down in New Orleans, so it's all like red, pink, orange with like a neon green design in the letters. It's going to be a love or a hate thing for everybody, but the age of the boring Super Bowl logos is definitely gone. Thankfully.
I'm loving it.
Yeah,
I like it a lot. I mean, because that's fun. That's fun.
Yeah. They're bringing a little bit of fun back to the No Fun League. Just
like
a little.
Is there a guy playing a trumpet? Looks like, right? Is there a guy playing a trumpet in the L?
You might have the wrong one.
That was 1 day ago. Now this is 10 hours ago. I see. Okay. Now I got the right one. It's like a fleur-de-lis in there almost, right?
Yeah, it's got like a New Orleans architecture style design in it, which I think was
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. That's fun. It just give me something different, man. Give me something different. Yeah. I'm happy about that. So
you know what's not gonna be different? You know who's gonna be back in the Super Bowl next year?
Probably the Chiefs.
Nope. Tom Brady.
Oh, great point.
Fox gets the Super Bowl next year. It's Tom Brady will be on color for that, presumably, unless it goes so poorly that they pull him off before the Super Bowl.
It won't. He's gonna be incredible.
And I was the biggest Tony Romo fan when he first started broadcasting, and he was so good his first season. And it's like that Tom Brady broadcasting duo next year is going to be so much better than what we had on CBS for this one, because it was just.
Well, Romo, at one point, I tweeted something out that was like, why did the guy go for the punt? Because shouldn't the ball be dead because Kansas City touched the ball? Because they said on the broadcast, why did he go for that? It touched the Chiefs guy. And I'm like, wait, it did? I'm like, I thought I touched the San Fran guy, but I go, it must have touched the Chiefs guy. But then I'm watching the replay, and I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? He clearly touched the San Fran guy. Like, what are we looking at? You know? He struggled. He struggled this year.
And I think the most annoying thing with Romo to me is that like every time he talks, it sounds like he's trying to get his quote in like one of the commercials or in like a hype video or something. And it's like, not everything is this big, grandiose moment. Like we want that for the moments, but if you do it every time there's a play and you're like jumping out of your seat, it just cheapens everything.
Yeah, and there's a few moments, right, in every Super Bowl that you kind of look back on, and there's, he was great in the 2018 game in Arrowhead. He was incredible, right? How he was calling the plays, and he needs to do more of that.
Yeah, I will say, one of the plays in there, everybody gives him credit for calling. He didn't call, and the opposite of what he said was going to happen happened. And like nobody, it's the fade that they called to Gronk, because he said that the safety is going to come down, and they're going to run the slant. And he ran the fake slant and
that's
fade, and they threw it. And they're like, everybody gives him credit for that, but he did it. He did a fantastic job.
Right. Well, and Dan saying too, like, that CBS probably told him, I would assume, to stop doing that. Because the regular people losing interest and things like that, but like that's what he does. That's like interesting. That's and people hate Collinsworth, but like I thought he was phenomenal in the Patriots Super Bowl against the Seahawks. And every time I hear Jermaine Kearse catches that pass and he's like, oh my God, what a catch, and this and that, and Al Michael's like unbelievable, and they're like going to whatever because Seahawks have to call timeout. And Collins just goes, but they're not in yet. And I'm like, what a freaking, of course, it doesn't matter. Like you're like, of course they're going to score, you asshole. You know what I mean? But like they don't score. And you're like, oh my God, what a freaking quote. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's Collinsworth, for all his flaws, is professional. Like he's good at it. I just don't particularly love his style. And I think he can be a little bit biased at points. But he's like a good neutral, I think, somewhere on the whatever the broadcaster index is going to be. I love Olsen. I'm excited to see how Brady does. I was nervous. I thought it might be a disaster at first, but hearing his recent podcast media stuff and his thoughts on the game, it's like, okay, he's got something there, and I think he has the voice down, and it's like, all right, I want to see this. Now the funny thing would be if they give the Patriots another opener against an NFC team next year and have Fox broadcast it and let Brady's first ever game in the booth be at Gillette. But there's no shot that's what happens. Wild. Well, because who do the Pats? Well, it could be any. They're less strict on the whole Fox CBS conference thing now.
That's true.
If it was going to be an NFC team, the only team that we could play that would garner getting the number one team, probably the 49ers in the opener, if we're out there, which could also be kind of fun for him to broadcast in the Bay Area.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be a fun opener. Well, not on the field product wise. I don't think that would be particularly entertaining there, but the other stuff.
Yeah. So, and so we'll see. And it's, it is what it is, and that's the way it goes. I'm excited about it.
Speaking of Brady in the Dunkin' commercial is so funny.
That was it. That was the one. That was the best one. They had some good ones. That was the best one.
And the behind the scenes stuff they put on like social media, like the extended versions of it, are hilarious.
Fantastic. That was the best one. I thought that the players flying, the YouTube TV one was good. That was a good one.
I totally missed that.
So it was it was like all the players were migrating, but they were like, the Seahawks. And so like they actually had some of the Seahawks, but they were like, were in their uniforms and stuff, and they're flapping their wings, like flying as if they're like migrating. It was good. It was good.
Yeah. So I ended up missing a lot of the commercials last night because we have cats here that we got recently, and our cats love human food. That's like their favorite. Like if there's food out, they're going for it.
Oh God!
But of course, we got food out for the Super Bowl,
obviously.
So we were all kind of rotating on cat duty to make sure that anytime the cat jumped up on the table, he wasn't getting into the taco dip or the chicken wings or whatever. So there were a lot of yelling at the cat, running into the kitchen, picking him up and pulling him off, whatever, and then running back in. So missed a couple commercials in there while that was happening.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Thad mentions the State Farm commercial with Arnold, which was good, and ends with Danny DeVito. That was a good one too. So there were some good ones. There were some good ones in there. I think the Duncan one is the best one, and just because Affleck just goes so far over the top, Brady's great in it, and then Matt Damon just sells it so much as like he absolutely hates it and doesn't want to be there. It's like it's fantastic. So so I like that one a lot. So all right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about Matt's mock draft 2.0. That's right. We have a mock draft
ready for
out.
people to yell at me.
Yeah, oh yeah, yep. It's going to be great. You know, and look, this is a situation where we've talked about already. Every 2 weeks, we're going to come up with a mock draft. It's your week this week. In 2 weeks, it'll be my week. And then once April rolls around, we'll do one every week, every Monday. So, but let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we will discuss that. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks. For me, it's got to be the buffalo chicken dip. That's my #1 with the Fritos. Come on now. And placing some super bets as well. My #1 bet of the weekend, offensive lineman to score a touchdown, because that's just hilarious. That would be incredible. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W, or 2, or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/Boston to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/Boston. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and present and in Mass. Hope is here. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. gamblinghelpma.org or call 1-800-327-5050 for 24/7 support. Play it safe from the start. GameSenseMA.com or call 1-800-GAM-1234. All right. Before we get into it, Thad Skywalker did mention that Tyquan Thornton did get hired by the Patriots yesterday. I thought it was interesting timing because famously before the 2011 Super Bowl, he was cut the night before the Super Bowl and didn't play in that Super Bowl, and then was hired during the Super Bowl to come back to the Patriots. I thought that was kind of fitting, which I liked.
And I think the other part of this too is that he's assistant wide receiver coach, which seems interesting. I don't know if that means Troy Brown is staying on or if they're hiring somebody else to be full-time.
Right. I'm not sure. Troy was wearing all the Senior Bowl stuff and no Patriot stuff.
He doesn't seem to be with the team anymore. And it is weird to hire the assistant for the main guy, but also we go back earlier this week, what we didn't talk about, they hired Dante Hightower to be linebackers coach. And my first thought was, hell yeah. My second thought was, this is a big jump for him to have never coached before and be the linebackers coach. And, you can rely on Covington and Mayo to help you out, but do you want your DC also being your linebackers coach and trying to train a guy to be a linebackers coach at the same time? And do you want Mayo trying to help out with all that? Like, I think you want those guys in their new jobs. And then the name's totally going to escape me, but they hired the former outside linebackers coach from the Giants, who worked with Wink Martindale, who is apparently loved. Like Wink Martindale, apparently he's been raving about this guy. And now it seems like, all right, I'm assuming that we're going to see Hightower be his assistant. And I really, really like that pairing. So, and I like the Tyquan Underwood pairing. He's good. He apparently learned a lot in New England. He wasn't good, but that's because of the smarts thing.
Right. That doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So Drew Wilkins, by the way, was the guy's name. He did work with Matthew Judon, as Old Man Mob mentioned. And so we'll see what happens. Now, their tight ends coach is leaving to go be with Bill O'Brien in BC. So they're looking for a tight ends coach as well now. So
that's not really a surprise there because he came with.
He did. He came with him. Yeah.
Yep. He just follows Bill O'Brien. They're kind of attached at the hip at this point.
Which is good. Nothing wrong with that.
So it's running back, wide receiver, and tight ends coach are all still
correct
open.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct. So as far as we know, at least, right? And there are some reports floating around. Of course, we've seen the name Chad O'Shea come up a few times. A guy who has been an offensive coordinator in some places, but was a wide receivers coach here in New England before he went down to Miami.
Mm-hmm.
So as the OC with Flores. So we'll see. We'll see where that goes from there. I do like the hirings so far. As I pointed out that he loves the coaching hirings. I think the coaching hirings have been great. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of question marks as to what's going to happen. I love Donta Hightower. Listen, I'm going to do a season-long campaign for Donta Hightower to unblock me on Twitter or X, whatever the hell it's called now. He blocks me on Twitter. And what happened was, it was very innocuous. Here's what happened, okay? It was the anniversary of something that came up in my memories on Facebook, okay? And it was the 2012 season. I remember it vividly. It was the 2012 season. And I remember thinking that Hightower was terrible. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't 2012. It was 2013. It was second year in the league. 2013 season. And they were playing the Broncos. And I posted something on Facebook that was like, I can't wait to watch, Donta Hightower, the slowest tight end, slowest linebacker in the league, try to cover, try to cover the Broncos tight ends or whatever and get completely lit up by Peyton Manning all game, right? He had a phenomenal game in that game. I think it was Monday Night Football or something like Sunday night. It was Sunday Night Football, I think. He had an outrageously good game in that game and literally was nails from that moment on until the end of his career. And I literally could not have been more wrong. And I think I tweeted out a screen capture of it. And I was like, here's my, formal apology. Or it was something like, anyone that doesn't think I'm terrible at this, like, here's what I said about Donta, at Donta Hightower, 8 years ago or whatever, and how stupid I am and how incredible he's been since, right?
And he blocked you for it?
And I was like, what the hell, dude? So season-long campaign to have Donta Hightower unblock me. We'll see if I can pull it off by the end of the year.
But I love it. Well, it's funny because Hightower got off to a crazy good start in his first game ever. He and Chandler Jones combined for the strip sack touchdown.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of was there the first 2 years of his career other than that. And it took him time to reach what he became. But
and like I say, by the end of
he was a monster.
Yeah, he played well in that game against Denver. I think it was 2013, the end of 2013. And then he played well the rest of the year. In 2014, he was incredible. And he was that guy the rest of his career. So anyways. All right, let's get into mock draft. We'll get into there. We do have some coaching things we got to get through, but we'll get into there. But we're going to start off with old man Mob right here saying all the Super Bowl has showed me is that the Pats need to take a QB at 3, Drake May or Jaden Daniels. Matt, you disagree, at least in this one.
I don't. This isn't. I want to make something clear. This isn't what I think they should do necessarily. This is kind of, I'm entertaining a hypothetical in this mock. So my second mock draft of the cycle, I wanted, and this is kind of jumping off of Pat's last one. Pat's was, what if the Patriots feel like Caleb is the guy and they need to go up and get him? This is, what if they don't like this quarterback class? They just don't think these guys are that good. Caleb and May are off the board, or Caleb and Daniels or whatever. Whoever's there at 3, they don't think is worth that pick. And they don't love the rest of the board and they want to pass on the position. They say, we're going to sign a bridge quarterback and we're going to push this out, or we're going to try to trade for somebody later or whatever. And we're just going to start building the team now and worry about the quarterback another time when it comes to the long-term option. I wanted to see what the draft would look like if we go through that lens, and we'll start at pick 3. And this is one of the reasons why I like this lens. At pick 3, you get Marvin Harrison Jr., who is, arguably the best prospect in this entire draft. And, he can on his own almost single-handedly fix the receiver issue that we've had since 2017. Like that's what he's capable of. Since Brandon Cooks left, we really haven't had that guy as an outside receiver, and that's changed now. You get a guy who can come into the NFL and probably not just be, a high-quality starter, be like a top half of the league starter at receiver. He can be one of those guys for you. So I think that can change the trajectory of your offense going forward, having a guy like that out there, a talent like that. And he's also just, such a sure thing. Probably the best receiving prospect since Julio and AJ Green when they came out together. That's the level of guy we're dealing with here.
Well, and that's really what it comes down to, is that there hasn't been a wide receiver taken in the top 3 in a long, long time. But he's incredible. He's incredible, and he does everything well. Jamar Chase is a phenomenal wide receiver, and he does a lot of things well. I think that Marvin Harrison Jr., and you just mentioned it, is a better prospect coming out of college than Jamar Chase was, right? Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be a better NFL receiver. We don't know that.
Yeah.
But he's a better prospect. And, the problem, and so TJ's asking, can we trade back and get Marvin Harrison Jr.? And the answer to that question, I believe, is no. And the reason why I believe it's no is because there's a possibility that quarterback goes 1, 2, 3. That's certainly a possibility, right? As it did in 2021. That's certainly possible. But Arizona's at 4. Arizona's taking Marvin Harrison Jr. if he lands. Like, if he falls to them, he's taking him. They're not taking a left tackle. They drafted a tackle in the first round. Like, that's just, they're taking him at 4 if he's there. So, and they're not trading up to 3 with you. That'd be silly. So, they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's there. If you want Marvin Harrison Jr., you have to take him at 3. And look, and the reason why I like the mock draft exercise, because you said it. You don't necessarily agree that this is what the Patriots should do. I don't necessarily agree this is what the Patriots should do, but it's a good exercise to take a look at it and say, what if they think that these quarterbacks are good, but not great, and they think Marvin Harrison Jr. could be a wide receiver 1 in his first year? And if that's the case, then you take him at 3 because he automatically makes you better.
Yep. And I know a lot of people have said, and I don't disagree with this, quarterback is such an important position. You need one to win. You need to take one. The flip side of that is that quarterback is that important of a position. If you don't like the prospect and you don't think they're good, you almost can't afford to take one. And it's not, every prospect comes with risks that you're going to have to be able to accept. But if it's, beyond what your threshold is and there's just too much going on there, don't force it. Obviously, you have to take risks at some point, but you don't force it on some of these guys. If you don't love it with where this roster is, there's no point in drafting a quarterback you don't love just to throw him on a roster that isn't good and not fix your other.
That to me is the biggest point about quarterback, is that it's the most important position in football, and I agree with that. But because it's the most important position in football, you have to get it right. If you take a guy at 3 just because you need a quarterback and you're not sold on him, you're in trouble, right? And I don't know if that's what they did in 2021. I don't know if that's what they did. But if that's what they did in 2021, it was a mistake, right? They made the playoffs that one year, but you saw what happened to Mac Jones after a certain point. Again, I don't want to get into that. We've gone over that, and we'll see what happens to Mac Jones eventually in his career and if he can rebound. But if they weren't sold on him, it was the wrong pick. You have to believe in what you're doing and be sold on it. Now, again, does that necessarily? I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but I think that taking a quarterback is great if he's the right guy.
Yep, agreed. And it's kind of a binary. Either you like him or you don't. If you like him, you take him. If you don't, you don't.
Right.
So yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So that's their first pick, which I think kind of becomes that's the easy one. I think that's one of those. If you can't trade back and you're just there at 3, you just take him. He's as close to a sure thing at a position you need. You just do it and you go from there. Next up, go to pick 34. I've got offensive tackle Jordan Morgan from Arizona. He's a guy who he's got some warts to his game, as you would expect with any tackle who's still there in the second round. But when he gets his hands on you as a blocker, he's going to win the rep. He's got really, really strong hands. He's got good hand placement once he gets there. It's just there's some technical stuff there that he still has to learn. He is a left tackle too. He's a guy who would come in and at least compete for a starting job at left tackle right away, if not outright earn it, depending on who else would be brought into the building. And I just, I like it. He's experienced too. He's a guy who I think comes in and can give you quality play right away. And Yeah, and there's some other tackles that I like more than Morgan, but I do think from what we've heard, there's going to be a run on them, and I wouldn't be surprised if Morgan goes before 34. And this ends up, if you want to tackle here, you got to trade up, or it's got to be somebody who might be another tier down of a prospect. But being able to get a guy who you think could be a starting left tackle in this league at 34, you take that.
Well, and that's the thing, is that supposedly it's a very, very deep class for tackle. It's a really important position as well. And if you're not sold on the quarterbacks that are there, and I don't know if people are going to be, and there's a possibility, we've talked about this, J.J. McCarthy might jump into the first round, Michael Penix might make the end of the first round. Like there's a chance that those guys go there. That is maybe, there's a possibility that those guys end up there. But if there are really good players at tackle, it's an important position. There might be teams that are willing to trade up to get a guy like that because it's that important of a position. And so I think Jordan Morgan, again, has some work to do. But what I like about it is that he's a left tackle. You need a left tackle. I think Onwenu works well in this system. I hope that they re-sign Onwenu. But theoretically, if you bring Onwenu back, you have your right tackle. Now you have your left tackle in Jordan Morgan, and maybe he can't start right away. Maybe you have to teach him some things. Maybe he's got to get a little more polished so he's not ready to go right away. Or maybe you just throw him into fire and say, we're going to lose anyways. This year doesn't matter. Like, let's train you on the job. But either way, you're hoping you have your starting left tackle of the future. And that is well worth pick number 34.
Yes. Yeah, and I like it. And we're going to get to it, but he's not the only tackle that's going to be in here. But that's your second round pick. We go to the third round. I actually have the Patriots just trading back a bit. I think if you're not taking the quarterback at some point in this draft, you want to trade back, see if you can pick up a little extra capital somewhere along the lines. We'll have them moving back 14 spots in the third round, and they also give up their sixth in it, and they get an extra fourth. I put all of this in like a little draft pick value calculator I made, so the values on the picks make sense for what would happen in an actual draft day trade. This would be with the Colts. So when you get to pick 82, it's going to be a wide receiver from Washington, Jalen McMillan. This dude is fun to watch. He was injured this season, so his stats aren't as good. He had over 1,000 yards last year, though. He gets touchdowns. And the comparison for this guy is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's a bigger slot guy, really crafty route runner. He knows how to get to the spots he needs to get to and how to win. He's got good hands, and I think he has he's not quite as well built as Amon-Ra is, but he also has better deep speed. As a result, he's a little bit more of a deep threat out of the slot. And I think you look at a New England offense, you put the receiving core together, Marvin Harrison Jr. as your X, Jalen McMillan as your Z, and Pop Douglas in the slot. And if these guys hit the way you think they're going to, you've just gone from bottom 5 receiving core to potentially top half of the league.
Right. Yeah.
Just with that, all in one fell swoop. And I love McMillan. In a real draft, I don't know if you can trade back and get him. You might just take him at pick 68 because I really, really like what he does. I'm curious to see how he is in the combine, but love him. Absolutely love him. Go to the fourth round. We're going right back to tackle. Wide receiver and tackle. Those are the issues on offense. We're just hammering them to start this draft. This is going to be the other Notre Dame tackle, Blake Fisher, who is their right tackle with Joe Alt, who is approximately the same age as Joe Alt, I'm pretty sure. Less refined, but still incredibly talented and can play on the right side. He's the type of guy who is going to sit probably for his first year behind Onwenu and learn a little bit. You hope he can be a swing tackle, and if things go better than expected, he gives you the flexibility to put Onwenu back to guard if he's more comfortable there, depending on what would happen there. And if they don't re-sign Onwenu, then you're going to have 2 rookie tackles, so you're competing for starting jobs. And if they both win them, fantastic. But if you even get one starting tackle out of these 2, I think both of them have the capability to do it. If one of them is a starting tackle, that helps you a ton.
I support this because I have the exact same guy going at pick 107 in the fourth round of my mock draft. So I support it. I support it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, he's a lot to like about him. He's young. Like that's it's not often you can get a very young, very talented offensive lineman at this point. He obviously has a lot of warts with that if he's still there. He's inconsistent. You got to work with him. And he may not be there then. This is pick 103. And I was using the mock draft database, which kind of aggregates where he's being picked, but some people have him a little ahead of this, so he might be, gone in the 90s type of guy, but we'll see.
Yep.
And with that trade back I did in the third round before, picked up an extra fourth, and this is why. This is where you go for the boom or bust pick for the offense to build it out. This is Jaheim Bell. Have you watched Jaheim Bell, Pat?
I have not.
He's a tight end. He played for 3 years at South Carolina and then was at Florida State this past year. He kind of does everything. There's a little like Kyle Juszczyk to his game. He's just a really good athlete. He's fantastic after the catch, and he can run the ball. He had more yards rushing than receiving at South Carolina last year as a tight end. And, he's still raw. He's still more athlete than anything else, and you're hoping for development there, but he can do a lot after the catch. I think he's an ideal tight end too in an offense because he can give you some matchup threats, and you're going to ask a little bit less of him as a blocker. But in the scheme that Alex Van Pelt has used before that has been friendly to tight ends who are like that, I think he gives you the ability to do a lot of things. And if you look at a lot of the play action bootleg stuff that those offenses run, where they'll have a tight end run across the formation, and that's going to be your first receiver in the flat right in front of the quarterback who can just take off and run. A tight end like that in that kind of a scheme, so good. Like that's where he would thrive. So
yep. I like it. I like it. Swing for the fences with some guy that hasn't necessarily done it in college and but lights it up when he gets to the pros. Yeah.
And that's the whole fourth round here is guys who are athletic but need some polish. But you can find a role for somewhere out there and feel comfortable putting them on the field at some points. So I love those, and we'll see. I mean, I love all these guys, and what's my rule? If you love a guy in a mock draft, he's probably going to end up going higher than where you had him. And I feel that way about the last three picks. None of these guys may actually end up being there, but they are in that range. We'll go to the fifth. We got another trade back here just to pick up an extra draft pick. So we're going to move back like 20 spots here in the fifth round with the Rams, pick up an extra sixth in the process because we'd given up a sixth earlier in the thing. Yeah, just kind of moving around the board to get picks in different spots. I got Jalen Wright from Tennessee, just a really fast running back. Very willing in pass protection, although he's a little hit or miss there at points. He's still learning. His vision is not fantastic, but he's incredibly fast. He's a home run threat.
And that's what you want. At this point, you need somebody like that for the offense. And maybe they don't hit on it, maybe they do, but it's worth taking a shot at a running back, whomever it is, right? If it's this guy, if it's someone else, if it's whatever, but like you need to take a shot at a running back to help you out because Ramondre can't carry the load, and I don't know if Zeke is going to want to come back. He might, but I don't know if Zeke's going to want to come back. So you're going to need a running back if he doesn't want to come back. He may want to go to a team that has a chance to make the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and even if Zeke comes back, he is not fast. Neither Ramondre has got good speed, but he's not a take it to the house every play kind of running back. So getting a little lightning in the backfield to pair with the Thunder is something I would like. Ramondre is a great receiver out of the backfield too, but somebody who can take some load off him there and attack defenses in different ways, I think would be a good thing. And then we move on to the sixth round here. Pat, I don't know if you're familiar with the guy I took in the sixth round. This guy screams Patriots profile.
Love it.
Started at Cornell. Was at Cornell for 3 seasons. He was a safety at Cornell. Transferred. He ends up going to Houston Christian and switches from safety to edge defender. Puts on like 15 pounds of weight or whatever. Where he was there for the last 2 seasons. 13.5 sacks playing that position for the first time in the last 2 years. There at Houston Christian. His name is Jalix Hunt. He was at the Senior Bowl. People loved him there. They said he was flying around. He's a freak athlete. He's still learning the position. You're getting him in the 6th round. You love it. And I think the worst case for a guy like this is he can become a special teamer for you because he's that body type that, he can run fast and he can hit hard. You can put him in space and he's comfortable.
It's like DeMarcus Mitchell, right? DeMarcus Mitchell.
Yeah.
who did
Or
that for the
like
Patriots. Edge
Geno
rusher type guy.
Grissom back in the
Yep.
day.
Yep. Same type of guy,
That-
right? And
yeah.
Geno Grissom, I think, was a 3rd-round pick. So the fact you get
he
this
was
guy in the 6th
and it's
round is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and Geno Grissom he was Oklahoma, I think,
Right.
and
Right.
higher tier of athlete than I think what we're
Correct.
talking
Yeah.
about here with Jalex Hunt, but intriguing enough. And they always take a Senior Bowl guy. I wasn't going to do this without having a Senior Bowl guy
Oh yeah.
in there. I will wrap it up. I got Micah Abraham, the corner out of Marshall. I was looking at some of the defenders in this area, and he stood out to me because he's got a lot of pass deflections. He's got a lot of interceptions. There, he played, I think, 5 seasons at Marshall, a starter for the last 3. He's got 10 picks combined the last 2 years, at least 10 passes deflected the last 3 years in every season. So,
Yeah, I love it.
He's like a press corner type of guy. You're taking a chance here, and we've talked about the depth at corner, and if they bring back Alex Austin, and got a guy like this, you got Isaiah Bolden waiting in the wings,
Mm-hmm.
just taking shots on a bunch of guys, and you're hoping, you coach them up, and they can be guys you can put on the field at some point,
Exactly.
and
you want athletic guys that you can train. And if that's the case, and you can train him up, and again, he's not going to be starting necessarily, but a guy that can rotate in every now and again that can help you out with some size and speed. So
and it's you got a guy with ball skills too. Which is a very different type of player, but I think at J.C. Jackson, he made his way under the roster. Why? Because he was getting picks in camp, he was getting picks in preseason games, and if you can make those game-changing plays, even if you're hit or miss in coverage, you can help your team out.
And that's a skill. That's a skill that is hard to teach. Some guys just have that ability to see the field and understand what's happening, go make a play. Like, not everyone does, but some guys do.
So that's my mock, and you can see prioritizing offense. Drop Jacoby Brissett into that. You might have a top 20 offense there with some of the talent that you add, and you see what it looks like from there.
Right, and you kind of when you figure it out, and look, are you going to be competing for a championship? No, but again, it comes back to the question of, what do you think is in the draft? Do you think that these guys are great in the draft? Because you can look at it and say, well, next year's quarterbacks aren't great either. Well, what does that mean? Okay, next year's quarterbacks aren't great. So what? You know what? Going into the 2020 season, nobody thought Joe Burrow was great.
Yeah.
Right? But all of a sudden, going into 2019 season, right? You're sitting in the 2019 draft. No one's sitting there saying, oh my God, this guy Joe Burrow at LSU is going to be incredible. He's going to be the number 1 pick next year. Nobody thought that. And so you never know what's going to happen from one year to the next. And so, for me, if you don't love a guy, you don't take him just because you're afraid that next year's quarterback crop isn't as good as you think it's going to be. That's stupid. So you take a generational guy in Marvin Harrison Jr. and you go from there. So, and again, this may not happen, but if they feel that way, they cannot take a quarterback. You can't take a quarterback just to take a quarterback. That would be completely the wrong thing to do.
Yep, and I think the other thing here, we asked about the draft class. The draft class isn't the only way to get quarterbacks either.
Mm-hmm.
Guys can hit free agency. Dak Prescott is the guy right now who has an expiring contract who could be interesting. And you look at the Lamar Jackson situation before this season, where in theory a team could offer to try to get him. Well, if you're the Patriots, especially now knowing what we know about the offense, giving up what it would have cost to get Lamar Jackson is tough because the offense isn't very good. Right. Well, if this is your draft and the guys hit like you think they might, well, you can afford to give up some extra draft picks to go get a quarterback. And that's the same if you're trading up for one. It gives you options, and it also, if the offense is better around the quarterback, it's an easier step into what you're doing.
Look at what the Chiefs did, right? Look at what the Chiefs did. The Chiefs built their offense. They brought in Alex Smith, and they traded up for Patrick Mahomes, right? Alex Smith was a Pro Bowl quarterback here. Now, he was a former number 1 pick, but that happens to those guys all the time, where they fall out of favor in somewhere. Happened to Jared Goff, right? They fall out of favor in somewhere, and then they go somewhere else, and they have a better experience there. It's not impossible. It's not as likely, but it's not impossible. And again, if you don't love the guy at 3, it's a mistake to take him just because he's a quarterback.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's also not usually how NFL teams operate. They usually, especially with quarterbacks, either like the guy or they don't.
Right.
And I anticipate with Alex Van Pelt being the offensive coordinator that they're going to like Drake May and they're not going to like Jaden Daniels as a team fit with what they're going to want to do.
Kind of feels that way.
They're both good runners. But I think you see May make more of the whole field reads. Here's the thing I will say with Jaden Daniels. He's very good at taking the deep shots, and he's good with like play action and stuff. So he's not necessarily the type of quarterback that Alex Van Pelt has been around before, but I can see the fit for what he would be in that type of offense where you can ask him to take a lot of deep shots off of play action and max protect, things like that. So we'll see the direction they go, but there's a lot of ways this can go. And the other part, where the Patriots on offense are crawling right now, and you got to walk before, you got to get up on your feet. You got to walk, then you can run. You're probably not going from crawling to running all in one draft here. And the closest I think we've seen recently is the Jaguars, and they got off to something faster than walking pace and then have just stayed there ever since and have not been able to elevate above that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, don't draft Trevor Lawrence, because I would be very happy if the Patriots had Trevor Lawrence, but
of course, yeah. You
gotta weigh the risks and rewards of all of this stuff very carefully. And
even if you think you get the guy, it doesn't guarantee you're going to be good.
No, and I'm not opposed to, you build the offense and drop a quarterback in who's good for now, and you figure the rest out later. If the hypothetical where Dak Prescott becomes available, he's not my favorite quarterback of all time. I don't know if you win the Super Bowl with him, but you're a lot better if you have him. In this world. And you probably have him for what? 4 seasons? Something along those lines. And that's 4 seasons where you're competitive and you figure the rest of it out. It allows you to, draft a quarterback in year 3 of his deal or whatever to sit for a season if you find you like somebody you can basically treat Dak Prescott how the Chiefs treated Alex Smith, if that's how you want to handle it.
If you don't, and that's the thing, a guy comes in like that and you don't love him right away, trade up for a quarterback the next year. Do what the Packers did, and draft Jordan Love in that situation. Jordan Love looks like a stud right now. People laughed at them when they made that pick, but they knew quarterback's important. We like Jordan Love a lot, and so we're going to go out and get him, and they did. Mm-hmm. Right, and it pissed a lot of people off. It pissed Rodgers off, and and people didn't like it, but it was like that's the right thing to do. So, just it is what it is. So. Yeah. So we'll see. Old Mob says the Cowboys treated Romo like that when Dak took over, which is true. So
but, and it's you just I see, and I'm not opposed to taking a quarterback on day 2 or 3 usually either, just to say, hey, we're gonna throw a pick at it. I'm just personally I'm skeptical. Once you get past the top 6, I'm skeptical. Yeah. This particular class, Spencer Rattler is the only name in there that even somewhat interests me, and I don't know. Would you rather have Spencer Rattler over an option for tackle or over Jaheim Bell? I don't know if he's shown enough.
That's the question, right? That's the question is he ever going to really play for you? Yeah. Whereas you can get a guy in a different position that could. So, Yeah.
And obviously there's potential a guy falls. If Bo Nix or Michael Penix is there in the 3rd, that's something I'm going to
correct. I don't like Bo Nix, and I'm worried about Michael Penix. But you telling me the middle of the 3rd round, I can take a guy like Bo Nix, who theoretically could be a solid player in the league. I don't think he's ever going to be a superstar, but he could be a decent player in the league. Like, what the heck,
Yeah. So a lot of ways to go, but that's if they don't like the quarterbacks draft, feel free to throw a comment on the Pat's Pulpit article for that.
I love it. And again, we just come back to it, right? It's it's the situation where it's an exercise, right? Mm-hmm. We're not necessarily saying this is what they're going to do, but if that's how they feel, this is one way they could approach it. So I like the draft a lot of really good, interesting guys in there. And what we're trying to do too, the reason why we make it a 7-round mock draft is because we're trying to hit some of those guys in the middle to late rounds that you haven't heard of yet, right? If you haven't heard of that guy, now we talk about him a little bit. we throw a clip on there of him, and you're like, "Ooh, that guy's interesting." And then all of a sudden, you're looking at that guy saying, "Oh, okay, all right, I got a little bit more knowledge about that guy that I didn't know about before." So, those are the exact type of guys that we're looking at because those are guys that can make an impact later on down the line. And look, maybe they don't do anything. There's a possibility those guys don't do a thing, right? But we want to broaden your horizons a little bit more. We don't want to just talk about the top 100 guys because we can do that all day. But like, what's the point of that, right? So we'll get into some of those late round guys because they're fun, and again, those guys sometimes make an impact. So, anyways, I think that's it. That's all we got for the show tonight, right? Unless there's some final things you want to get out in the Super Bowl, but I think that's it.
It's time for the off season.
That's right. That's right.
How many days until training camp starts?
Oh God, too many. I don't know.
I might need to get a clock to put in my background here. It's just the countdown until the opener, the first day of training camp, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not ready to run my conditioning test, so I gotta get going on that.
You could train a little bit, and
I got to. I'm gonna have to. So. Anyways, that does it for us today. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. As always, the chat flying. We appreciate it. And as Thad points out, 4 weeks until free agency. Oh, baby. So that'll be fun.
Can't wait.
I'm very excited about that. And of course, before that will be, even before that will be re-signing. And so that part of it is interesting as well. And so we've got the combine coming up soon. And then we'll go from there. So we're going to be back Thursday night talking about a few other things as well. And yeah, so we appreciate it. Congrats to the Chiefs and Chiefs fans. Still not as good as Brady, but Mahomes is damn good. And enjoy. All I can say to the Chiefs fans is enjoy every second because it will end one day. And we said this to Patriots fans. We didn't believe it would end, but it did. And Chiefs fans, I can tell you, it's going to end one day. Could be 10 years from now. Could be 15 years from now. Could be 20 years from now, like it was for the Patriots. But it will end one day, and when it does, you come crashing back down to earth, and it's tough. But
it's humbling.
We're still here. It sure is. It sure is. So I'm like, I remember when teams used to just completely turtle when we played them. When teams would just fall apart for no reason, just because they're playing us. I miss those days. But that's the way it goes. So, anyways, thanks guys. We appreciate it. Love you guys, and we'll see you on Thursday night.